And we're live. Welcome
Mhm.
to Two Doctors Homestead. My name's Daniel, and we're joined with Strangely Strange, also Jay, part of the Dystopian Book Club. We've got a couple other people in the book club that weren't able to join tonight, and that's okay. And as I've said before, if you're interested in joining the book club, just send me an email, twodoctorshomestead@gmail, and you're welcome to join. It's wide open. We're always happy to have more people in, even if you just want to hang out and read the book. That's okay too. So before we get back in, we ended on chapter 6. There's only 10 chapters in the book, so I suspect we'll be able to wrap it up tonight. I did want to kind of go back into some of the historical context of the book before we start going through the chapters. And as before, I'll hit the summary of a chapter and then we can kind of talk through key points, key characters, those kind of things for the chapter. So the book we've been reading is Animal Farm, written by George Orwell. So he wrote the manuscript between November 1943, and February 1944 after his experiences during the Spanish Civil War. Right, and he wrote a book about that, and me and Jay were just talking about that. I'll probably go back and read it. I haven't read that book yet. And as we said
Mhm.
before, it was important to consider what was happening in the time in 1945, because 1945 marked the end of World War II, the fall of Nazi Germany, and the Empire of Japan. So I'd mentioned that, and we kind of talked about that last time. What we didn't get into was really sort of the historical representation of the book. I tended to lean more towards the modern parallels, right? What you read the book and see happening now, and didn't give enough credit to the historical side of the story itself, which Animal Farm really represented the Russian Revolution leading into 1917, which also paralleled World War One from 1914 to 1918, right? So you had the Bolsheviks under Lenin, Russian Revolution, and I think a lot of what you see in the book, in as much as it may seem relevant now, was really talking about the Russian Revolution in 1917. Um, we've said this before, and you picked this one up, Jay. Old Major represents Karl Marx. Snowball represents Lenin. Napoleon represents Stalin. Squealer, we had a name for it, but they say represents propaganda, and Boxer is a representation of the Russian laborers and workers who work themselves to death, right?
Mhm.
Old Major's dream was really stand in for Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto. And the rebellion of the animals, similar to the overthrow of Russian Tsar Nicholas II. Both rebellions happened without much planning and were achieved fairly easily. The overthrow of Nicholas happened when he sent military out to stop some protesters. The militants sympathized with the common people and instead turned on Nicholas. And Napoleon taking charge of the animals and working them harder than ever is symbolic of how Stalin had a 5-year plan. Both of these plans only worsened famine, and both Stalin and Napoleon used tricks to make the outside world think they were thriving. So wanted to jump into that. Oh, and we got Chris is coming in last second. Hey, welcome, Chris. Thank you for joining in. We were
Yay.
just getting started, and I was kind of redoing the intro and just trying to give credit to not only when the book was written, but sort of the time period the book was written about, which we didn't hit into that enough last time. So we're wanted to kind of go back over that. Thanks for joining in, Chris. Always thanks for being here, Jay. Any thoughts on any of that before we jump into the chapters? Said I know Jane was sort of, I think, frustrated with us that we weren't getting that. And you've got a lot of background noise, Chris.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Jay, any thoughts on that before we go forward?
Yeah, I'm just like wondering, like, when I was reading it, did the windmill represent anything particular?
I
Like,
didn't see anything on that, but it's certainly possible because that was a huge part of the book. Now,
mm,
one thing I guess I would say on the windmill is ultimately the original dream was supposed to be to provide electricity to the farm so the animals could live a better quality of life. And then as we see at towards the end, they sort of hijack the windmill and use it to mill grain to sell. And then, of
mm,
course, the money goes to a more luxurious life for the pigs rather than
mm,
the original intent of we're going to make the workers' lives better. We're going to give you electricity. You're not going to have to work as hard because we've got the windmill. So it probably represents something in that sense, kind of the stolen dreams of the people.
Mm-hmm. 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 I've got a couple of ideas about that, especially on
Oh, go
that
for it.
final destruction of it. Oh, no, when we get up to
Well,
that
wait.
chapter.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a big part. That is absolutely a big
Mm,
part of the book. All right.
mm.
So on that, let's jump in and Jay and Chris, if you guys see anybody in the comments when I'm kind of reading my summaries, my screen's blocked. So if you see anybody in the comments, feel free to shout it out. And same thing, Janet. Um, just so we don't miss anything on that. I think I was missing a bunch of the comments last time. All right, so we're going to jump into chapter 7. I reread it today. I made my notes. I've got a lot of notes, but let me work through the notes, and we're still getting background, Chris.
The protocol is in effect until you hear otherwise.
We're getting background, Chris.
Already recalled my nurses. I've got the ER covered. Client demanding me.
All right, I had to mute him. I think he's got the TV going. All right. Chapter 7 opens to a brutal winter and food supplies running short. The animals worked hard through the winter to rebuild the windmill, doubling the thickness of the walls. None worked harder than Boxer. The animals made efforts to hide the food shortage from the outside world as they did not want people to think they were starving or failing to run the farm. One Sunday, Squealer announced they'd made a contract with Mr. Whymper to sell their eggs at the market to get grain and meal to keep the farm going through the winter. The chickens were expected to produce 400 eggs a week. The chickens rebelled and would fly up into the rafters to lay the eggs, which caused them to fall on the floor and break. Napoleon acted swiftly to stop the rebellion by cutting all rations of food for the chickens. Eventually, the chickens gave in. After 9 hens had died, their bodies were buried in the orchard, and everyone was told they died of coccidosis, which is bad for chickens. Eventually, the eggs were delivered to Mr. Whymper, sent to market. Napoleon had been working on a deal to sell a pile of timber that was on the farm. He had been working on offers with Mr. Plinkington and Mr. Frederick. At the time, rumors circulated that Snowball was still alive and sneaking back into the farm at night. Whenever anything went wrong, Snowball was blamed. There was a search of the farm for evidence of Snowball's visit at night, and a revision of the story of the Battle of the Cowshed was shared by Squealer. And in his version of the story, Snowball had actually worked with Mr. Jones against the other animals. In the new version of the story, it was Napoleon, the heroic leader, that had saved the day. His story was so graphic and persuasive that the animals agreed. They remembered his version of what happened. Days later, Napoleon gathered the animals in the yard as he was wearing his medals that he had awarded himself, surrounded by his dogs. Yeah, and his dogs seized 4 of the pigs. The pigs were forced to confess to secretly working with Snowball and were put to death. 3 hens that were ringleaders of the rebellion over the egg sales came forward, blamed Snowball for the rebellion, and were also executed. Other animals came forward, such as a goose, and several sheep, also confessed to being in the influence of Snowball and were executed. This marked the first time an animal had been killed since the animals took over the farm. Rule number 6 of animalism stated that no animal shall kill any other animal. This was secretly changed to no animal shall kill another animal without cause. The public executions left the remaining animals devastated and distraught. Days later, a group of animals had gathered and were singing Beasts of England. They were approached by Squealer and several dogs and told that singing the song was now forbidden, as it was the song of the rebellion, and the rebellion was over. The execution of the animals was the final act. When the song was written, the animals were dreaming of a better society. Now that the society had been created, they no longer needed the song. The chapter ends with the animals singing a new song, which replaced Beasts of England, about their devotion to Animal Farm. So I had the main characters, Napoleon and his dogs, the hens in the rebellion, Snowball, rumors, Snowball's alleged supporters, and the notes. You've got the brutal winter and food shortages. Napoleon was working deals to acquire more food. There was the animal rebellion, sort of, right? The chickens didn't want to give up their eggs because they wouldn't have any babies. They did that, leading to public executions and the end of the national anthem. So a lot going on. That's what I had for that chapter. Any thoughts? Oh, let me unmute. All right, Chris, I unmuted you. I had you on mute there because you had the TV on in the background.
The next thing, everything just collapses around you.
I think you still got the TV on in the background there. All right, Jay, any thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. It was interesting with the chickens and like how this you could see Napoleon's kind of, you know, gradual decline into, like, we all knew with the dogs and stuff, but he's become more like a strict patriarchal figure, and he's just devolving more into corruption.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think you're 100% right on that, right? I mean, he went from, you could see his character, a lot of character growth there to the point that, yeah, he's got the dogs and now they're doing public executions. So you absolutely can. You can see that in a very negative way, and the chickens not wanting to give up all their eggs, leading a little rebellion, and then, yeah, I mean,
And the
lots of
way he starts
executions.
being like more like the humans are getting more involved in the animal farm too, like how he's pitting the two neighbors against each other, like for the
Right.
wood. But is he
Yeah,
really
yeah.
like, is that what he's really doing? And this is where I come into in the next chapter.
Yeah.
Like, so we'll read that a bit more, but this is like kind of foreshadowing that kind of idea, and yeah, how he just, yeah. And then like Janet said here, the brainwashed, like, because they're
Yeah.
not allowed to sing that song anymore. You
Right.
know,
It
like,
was a national
yeah.
anthem. They're like, nope, we don't need it anymore. Right.
Mm,
We don't need a
mm,
national anthem. We're all a big happy nation now. So we
mm,
don't need
mm,
that anymore. Yeah.
mm, mm.
No, absolutely. All right, let's see. Try Chris again here. Oh no, he's muted himself. I can't unmute him. All right, so we'll go on. We'll go on to the next chapter. I think that's great. I think you're absolutely right on that. Chapter 8. So the chapter opens days after the executions with the animals remembering the sixth commandment: no animal shall kill another animal. Only discover that it was not as they remembered it. It now says no animal shall kill another animal without cause.
Never mind.
Which there's a ton of parallels on that, right? You always see it feels like modern day rules changing, right? You thought a rule was one thing and then maybe it's not, and they're constantly showing that. And I'm sure it was relevant at the time of the book. I thought it said you can't kill anyone. They're saying no, not without cause, right? It's okay as long as there's cause. So that definitely jumped out at me. All right, sorry. So I'll keep going. More time passes and the animals continue to work on the windmill along with the regular work on the farm. There were times when it seemed the animals worked longer hours and were fed no better than before Animal Farm. On Sunday morning, Squealer would read off productivity reports stating that food production under Napoleon had increased 200, 300, or even 500%. By that point, the animals could no longer remember what conditions were like before the rebellion. A new poem was written about how amazing Napoleon was, which was inscribed on the wall of the big barn. Napoleon continued his efforts to trade with his neighbors. By the autumn of that year, the windmill was finished, save for the machinery needed to make it work, which they were working on trading for with their neighbors. Not long after that, in a trade betrayal by Frederick, right, because they did the woodpile and they got counterfeit banknotes, Animal Farm was attacked by 15 men, half with guns. The animals were unable to fight off the men, which set up the windmill and blew it up with explosives. The sight of the windmill destroyed caused the animals to rally and attack the humans. The battle was brutal as the humans had shotguns they used on the animals. Even then, the animals were able to overwhelm the attackers and send them fleeing from the farm. A few days later, the pigs discovered whiskey, leading first to the announcement that Napoleon was dying. Then he was okay. Then later, they sent Whymper to town to purchase books on brewing. Later, they decided to convert a pasture land, which was reserved for retired animals, to grow barley. Not long after, there was a loud crash as Squealer had fallen off a broken ladder and was caught changing the commandments once again. Instead of no animal shall drink alcohol, it now said no animal shall drink alcohol to excess. So the main characters, Squealer and his propaganda, Frederick and the attack on the farm, Napoleon and the whiskey. Notes I had: the windmill was finished, then destroyed in the attack. And I thought the only funny scene in the book, which was where Napoleon discovered alcohol, and they're like, he's dying. He's dying.
It's just a major hangover.
Yeah. I think he's going to die, guys. I don't think he's going to make it. And then he was okay. Oh, he's going to be all right. He's going to make it. And then, hey, we're going to buy some barley. I think we're going to start growing some booze. So we've all had those moments. So that was probably the only funny part. And then the sad, where the retirement was replaced with barley for making alcohol for the pigs. That was supposed to be the retirement pasture.
Which
So
is
that's
something that's happening now. You just spoke about the Social Security, yeah.
right. Yeah. Whereas the retirement is pretty much gone. It was barley actually. We got rid of the retirement for barley. So huge going on. That was the last attack on the farm. Let's see, Chris, are you back? Can you hear us?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Hey, how's it going? Looks like you're back.
Okay. Yep.
All right. So we were talking through chapter 8.
I could hear you all the time, the whole time.
Okay. Excellent. Either Chris or Jay, I don't want to put anyone on the spot. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on chapter 8?
Well, this is where my conspiracy head comes into play, and there's just some little things that kind of stuck out to me. It was like, especially where was it? When the men came, I have a feeling like this way that maybe Napoleon set it up like that, because the thing is that the windmill kept everyone so distracted.
Yeah.
Because they were so overworked. They not only had to harvest for themselves on the farm, but the windmill took up whatever free leisure time they had. And so with the windmill being completed, that would take away that, that exhaustion of the mind, to give the animals that more leisure time to maybe question what was going on. And so I feel like maybe Napoleon, in a way, planned it like that so that the windmill would get destroyed again. And that's just where my conspiracy head came in.
No, that's great.
Governments and corporations creating crises for us to all focus on, to bring in legislation and things that make our lives, harder.
I think that's brilliant. I didn't even pick up on that, but no, I mean, in certainly a modern parallel, it would make complete sense. So no, I think that's great. I did not even connect that. But yeah, I mean, the animals, you're right. It kept the animals very subdued, working to death, so they didn't have to pay retirement to build the windmill, and it was finally done. And like, nope, they swept in because they were friends before, right? And then they were certainly friends after the attack. So no, that's actually a really good observation, I think.
And especially Boxer too, because he was the one who was kind of leading that, and he was so respected in the farm that if he had leisure time, he was possibly seen as a threat, really, more than,
right.
But yeah.
No, absolutely. And that was something that was sort of mentioned, was Boxer really represented the people, which was just hardworking and just wanting to, kind of looking to retirement and wanting to work harder to solve the problems. That was their answer to problems was, hey, we'll just work harder and everything's going to be all right as long as we work harder.
Do you think there might have been a real life
supposed to save them, make things easier? Life was they wouldn't have to work as much, and because this windmill is going to do all this for them.
Right.
In fact,
absolutely.
I think they even talked about making a second windmill.
Right. So Snowball, when he first pitched the idea of the windmill, was they'd be able to generate electricity, and they would have light in the barn, and they could have hot water, and they wouldn't have to work as many days. So no, I mean, that was absolutely the original idea of the windmill was, it was going to be to make everyone's lives better. They do get, like, I think it's the last chapter 9 or 10, they do a second windmill, right? They sort of kind of jump forward in the future, but they even do a second windmill. But at that point, it's so corrupt that it's just to make money. Right, it had nothing to do. No one's life improves.
They have going never did generate electricity. It was for grain.
Right. It was supposed to be for electricity. Yeah, right. I think it's chapter 9 or chapter 10. They jump into that and say, right, it's just no. We decided milling grain was way more profitable than doing electricity for the workers.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so on that, I'll just go. I'll keep going. Yeah, no, go ahead. Please.
I'll just kind of what Chris was saying, like how the propaganda that animals are told, oh, this is for making your life easier. This is for, we see that even just like with the Patriot Act and stuff that you guys have. And we're getting it done with the censorship laws. It's going, it'll, the misinformation and the disinformation, and we need to censor all these people because for your benefit and for your lives. But actually, like, it's just to make grain, like, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, we'll mill grain, and that's gonna, it's gonna make money, and we need that money if we want stuff like whiskey, So we need that money. It's actually very important. Yeah, and you see that. That's a common theme, right? That is an absolute common theme where the pigs are like, well, we're the leaders, and we have to do this because if we don't do that, we won't be smart enough to run the farm. Constantly. It's for you. We do this for you guys.
I put a lifetime in aerospace.
Yeah.
And we were always behind in the Soviet. Oh, we've got to get this out. We've got to do this. We've got to be better. We need to be more innovation because the Soviets are better than we are. And so we have to do that next generation again. And we need to be faster, smarter, more accurate, everything more to beat the Soviets. And then years later, it turns out we were so far ahead of them, it was pathetic. But we were never told that. We were always told we've got to stay a step ahead. We're behind. We need to, work longer, work harder, be more clever, build the next generation faster. And it was never true.
Yeah. She's very much. Yeah, very relevant. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let me jump in. I'll jump into chapter 9. Not that I'm trying to rush through this. As the chapter opens, the animals are once again working to rebuild the windmill. Though he was haunted by injuries of the battle and getting older, it was mentioned that in the early days of Animal Farm, they negotiated generous pensions for the animals once they were too old to work, and Boxer was getting close to retirement age. The story continues with another hard winter and food shortages. However, Squealer was always working to convince the animals that were in fact no food shortages and life was better now than before. At this point, the animals could not remember what life was like before, so they believed Squealer that everything was better now.
Oh, if you listen to the propaganda now, it's better than it. We've only had
everything's better.
3% inflation.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't tell you the year before we had 10%. That didn't go away.
Right.
And the
just 3
2
more.
months before it was 3%. That didn't go away. And this month it's 3 more percent.
Right.
Well, it's only 3% inflation.
Things are getting they're getting better because they're not getting worse faster. They're getting worse slower, so that must be better.
Yeah.
It's not getting worse nearly as fast as it used to be, so that's a huge improvement.
Last year's inflation didn't go away.
Right. It's still getting worse, just not as fast as it was.
And now we're adding 3% on top of that 15 we picked up last year, and now we're adding, and it's just each percent. Oh, it's only 3%.
Right, more than before.
Well, they don't say that though. It's as if somehow, that buildup is gone, but it's not.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. And that's one of the things that really made me want to pull in the book, because it's amazing, 1940s, how much it feels like it parallels where we're at now. All right, so I'll keep going. The farm had a successful year. However, they were short on money as funds were being diverted to build a schoolhouse for the pigs, as well as other luxuries for the pigs. As rations and comforts for the animals were reduced over the winter, the pigs continued to get fat, which is, sounds familiar. By April, the farm was declared a republic, leading to the election of Napoleon as president. As the year progressed, the animals were working harder than ever to maintain the farm, rebuild the windmill, and now build a special school for the pigs. The story cuts to Boxer working harder than ever as he approached retirement age. Late one evening in the summer, Boxer collapsed and could no longer work. This led to much concern and uproar, and ultimately Napoleon said he would send for a vet, which turned out to be a slaughterhouse. Right, the animals panicked when they realized it was a slaughterhouse, not a vet. However, This led Squealer to convince everyone they were mistaken and only seemed like a slaughterhouse wagon because the vet just bought the wagon from a slaughterhouse and had not repainted it. Despite the claims that Boxer had given the best medical care possible, it was said that he died and they had a memorial for him at the farm. As the chapter ends, there was a delivery of whiskey to the pigs, which had somehow magically found the money to buy it. So I had main characters, Squealer and the propaganda, Boxer getting sick, sold to slaughter. And I just had some notes. In life and death, the animals served the pigs, and food was short. Life was hard for the animals to provide luxury for the pigs. And they had forgotten what life was like before. So thoughts on that? Boxer worked himself to death. Unfortunately, it was sad.
Yeah, man. It was awful, especially when he realized and he tried to get out, like after they'd told him, and he was trying to open the back door, and
Right. He had his moment. He's like, "Oh no, get me out of here!" And of course, they're like, "Oh no, it wasn't what you guys thought it was. You know, it only looked like a slaughterhouse truck. It was actually the vet." I just feel like that kind of double talk, that kind of gaslighting is so common nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, don't believe your eyes. Believe me. Believe me. Forget what you saw. Believe me. I mean,
when I was coming close to retirement, you were only expected to get like 14 retirement checks.
Yeah. Right.
I fooled them.
You fooled them. You're still here, still collecting. Still getting your checks, and that's good.
Nice.
We'll keep you around.
Do you think that there is a significance with the fact that Moses comes back?
Yeah, I didn't put that in. I was rereading the chapter today. And we did hit on that earlier. Like Moses was there earlier and he was telling everybody about, I think, Sugar Candy Mountain. And he did. He came back, right? He came back and he was kind of talking about that again, which certainly has parallels. I think it was Sugar Candy Mountain? I think it was called that he was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly a religious side of that. The idea that, hey, when you die, you go to a better place. So yeah, I had that in there. I didn't quite key in on it, but no, I think it was significant in that sense.
Because they're all declaring contemptuously about what Moses is saying, but yet they all allowed him to remain at the farm and still got beer with them as well. And I don't know, because didn't the Soviet state, like, a lot of the critiques that they get is that they replaced the church with worship of the state. And so does this maybe represent like moving away and back into the Orthodox Church, maybe, or something like that? I'm not sure.
Sure.
Like,
no, 100%. Absolutely.
There.
Yeah, I think the religious parallels were intentional on that. Absolutely. The name Moses, the talking about the afterlife. So no, I think you're probably absolutely right on that, because they did bring him in and he was good friends with Mr. Jones. So it could also be kind of foreshadowing where the pigs sort of end up as the new Mr. Jones. So it could have been a little foreshadowing of that as well. Like, hey, Moses is back and he's going to be friends with the pigs. And he's going to tell us all about essentially religion. We're going to give you guys religion now that can come back. Yeah.
That's what happened.
Because you can kind of...
The Soviet Union, before, when the Soviet Union was the Soviet Union, they were anti-religion. Now they're the most Catholic, or the most Christian country on the earth.
Because you can sort of get people to put up with anything if they've still got hope.
Right.
You see? And so, give them hope even after they die.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you saw that in the ancient Egyptians, right? Where the slaves had no hope. And I mean, at that point when they were building pyramids in those days, slavery was multi-generational. It wasn't just you had kids, and those kids would also be born into slavery. It was multi-generational back then. And I think that was where a lot of religious beliefs kind of took effect, which is, yes, life is going to be horrible, but after you die, right, there is that hope, right? Things will be better.
Candy Mountain.
Yeah, Candy Mountain,
Mm.
where there's food for everybody and everyone's happy. So I do think there are roots in that. So no, I think that's another great point, Jay.
I like your idea about the parallel, though, with the pigs slowly merging back into being Mr. Jones, and that
Yeah.
kind of
Looping, they're kind of coming back to where it started.
Mm.
And they mentioned several times that, you see it as a reoccurring, especially chapter, 9, some in chapter 8, but definitely in chapter 10, where they even say, like, the animals don't remember anymore what life was like before the rebellion. They just keep being told how heroic they were and how free they are and how great it is now that they're free and they can work for themselves. They really have no comparison anymore to how great or bad it was before.
Yeah.
That was sort of
Yeah.
all lost along the way. So they're
Yeah.
just like, sure, yeah, things are great. Okay, must be great. They keep telling us how great things are. Yeah.
But
No,
the thing that they do mention in there, and it is kind of true, and so I'm kind of wondering where the parallels are in that they say that the thing that kept the animals going, though, was the fact that they were still the only farm run and
yes,
managed by animals. And
right. Yep.
so there's obviously like some sort of validity into what they're doing, even if the pigs are slowly taking that
Yeah,
from them.
absolutely. Right. And well, yes, in the sense, I think I agree 100%. I think there's two sides of that, right? They are the only farm run by animals. They were the only one with kind of that successful revolution. But it would seem the ongoing sort of success, they sort of mock it in chapter 10, is that the animals are harder, or the pigs are harder on the animals than humans were, right? So the farm is able to sustain and be successful because the animals are working harder than they ever did
Yeah.
under the people. So I think that is
Yeah.
absolutely part of it. I don't know. I mean, they didn't really. I don't know in terms of why the rebellion didn't spread, and I'm sure there's historical context for that because it didn't, right? They had their great rebellion, they sent out the
Well,
ravens,
communism didn't spread that significant. You had the
so that's,
Western
yeah,
world, Australia, Europe. You had, and then it was satellites all over the place, and then you had the third world. Well, communists didn't spread throughout the third world. Even when it was in this side of the world, you had Cuba, and then you had Venezuela, but you didn't have it throughout everywhere.
yeah. And that's probably the basis, right? Because they were very clear, like, hey, we got the rebellion, we're sending out the word. They even went out of their way to appear more successful to the outside world, and there's big historical parallels for that, back to, once again, Stalin and Lenin wanting to see the world, hey, look, everything's great here. But in spite of that, it didn't spread. There weren't other farms, other animals that took the lead there, even with the song and the inspiration, and in this case would say Marxism. They didn't take it and do their own rebellion.
They tried. I remember the 50s being 70. I mean, I was born in 1951. Okay, I was a little kid through the 50s and into the 60s, but I remember all this bullshit that was in South America and all these other places. Well, we fought it. The United States very ruthlessly fought it.
Yeah.
I mean, very ruthlessly fought it.
Yeah. And they actually mention a parallel once again. The irony being in the book was written before what you're describing, but they even said that in the book, one of the earlier chapters, which if an animal was caught singing the song, the anthem, they would be beaten by the farmers. So they actually did mention that in the book, even though it was before what happened.
Yeah.
That any animal caught singing that
Well,
song.
the book was 1947, and I'm talking about 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It was before even, very Nostradamus of Orwell, because, I mean, you're talking about 60s, 70s. He wrote about it in the 40s. Any animal caught trying to even think that way was beaten. beaten by the farmers.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that's very interesting. I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, poor Boxer.
I know.
And
Worked
Benjamin.
himself to
I'm
death.
sure he
Yeah.
tasted good.
Tasted good. He went to the slaughterhouse. Probably glue. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
Maybe food.
Yeah.
Actually, glue, that's a missed thing. On glue is only their hooves.
Oh, okay.
What
A
made
little
glue.
glue.
I don't know what the fuck they did with the rest of it, but it was only their hooves that
Yeah.
made glue from. But this would be the slaughterhouse. You'd make
Right.
meat
Bone
out of
meal.
something.
Mm.
Yeah. All right. We'll keep going into chapter 10. All right. So the chapter opens with a large passage of time. Years passed. Many animals had grown old and died. Jones, the old farmer, had died in an inebriate's home. So that was the farmer died. Not sure what an inebriate's home of in another part of the country, but he seemed like he was hitting the bar and he was a drunk. So I guess he died of the alcohol poisoning or something like that. Clover had Clover was working years past retirement age, and yet no animal had been able to retire. Talk of setting aside pasture for retired animals had been dropped long ago. The farm had grown. There were more animals now than they had been able to buy additional pasture land from their neighbor Plankerton. The windmill was complete, and they had added a threshing machine, a hay elevator, and other various new buildings. They were even hard at work on another windmill. The first windmill was originally intended to provide electricity, hot water at 3 days of work weeks. It was actually used to mill grain to be sold at a profit. For the animals, life was as far as they knew as it had always been. Hard work, long days. They were hungry, slept on straw. They were cold in the winter and bothered by flies in the summer. They had nothing to compare life and were always told by Scooter that things were much better now than before. Despite all that, they were still the only farm in the country run entirely by animals. The animals took great pride in the tales of the old heroic days of taking control of the farm from the people and gaining their freedom and independence. There was a moment where the animals caught sight of the pigs learning to walk on two legs, leading the
Mhm.
sheep to change their old tune of 4 legs good, 2 legs bad to 4 legs good, 2 legs better. This led one of the old animals back to the site of where the original commandments of animalism were written to find that they had all been replaced with one commandment: all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. It was not long after that the pigs were frequently carrying whips when they would supervise the farm animals at work, wearing clothing, and were working on installing a telephone. It was not uncommon for outsiders to come visit the farm to take tours of the progress that was being made. This led to the final scene of the men and pigs having drinks and dinner together. The men lavished the pigs with praise in their ability to run the farm. As the animals at Animal Farm worked harder than the animals on any other farm, the animals worked longer hours with less food and less pampering than animals on normal farms. Bonds were strengthened between man and pig, and any hard feelings were long past. It was announced that the name of the farm would be restored to Manor Farm and the name Animal Farm would be abolished. It was at the time that the difference between man and pig was blurred, as an observer could not tell them apart. The closing scene was an uproar in the farmhouse as the men and pigs had caught each other cheating in a poker game. I had the main characters, Clover, and the end of the retirement pension plan for all animals. Napoleon, obviously, Mr. Plankerton. And then notes. One note was the ending was different in the movie, which I'll jump into that. The animals worked harder for less under the guise of freedom than animals in captivity did. And of course, the transformation of men into pigs or pigs into men. Sorry, wrong way. But it was different in the movie. So if you look at the movie, right, Utopia, as you said, sorry, Utopia. Yeah, I mean, you had, where was I? I lost my thing there. The ending. So when I watched the movie, in the ending there, they had, things had gone bad, right? In the movie, there were animals that had fled the farm, and then they came back maybe years later, and everything was destroyed, and it had all fallen apart, and new owners were coming in and was going to like start over. But in the book, it was actually very prosperous. which is maybe what, changing things to be more socially acceptable now, where they didn't want to show that actually, even though life was maybe horrible or hard for the animals, the overall farm was successful. They had another windmill. They were building another windmill. They were profitable. They had a schoolhouse. They had all these buildings. Life was hard, but it was actually successful.
Well, they didn't define it in the book, did they? I mean, seemed like the end was very fuzzy on that.
No, they said it. So as I was saying, like when you go into chapter 10, it said they had, let's see, let me go back to where my notes were. The farm had grown. It said that specifically there were more animals and they'd been able to buy additional pasture land from the neighbors. So they had grown the farm. They had made enough money to buy more land. They finished the windmill. They added a threshing machine, a hay elevator, and other buildings.
It seemed like one of the things I remember from the book was there was a question of what was money, or that they were offered money, and they didn't know, the animals, of course, not knowing what money was, and then they said they were cheated or something.
Yeah. So when Napoleon was first trading with Frederick for the woodpile, he was giving counterfeit money. And in my mind, I'm picturing monopoly money or something, because the pigs maybe didn't know what money was. And that ended up being a precursor for the attack, which is where they took down the windmill. And I think, Jay, you were probably right on that. That might have been a planned. Maybe the money wasn't counterfeit. Yeah.
And that's how they got the whiskey. They didn't actually find it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It could have been, oh no, all that money was counterfeit. Sorry, it's gone. So no, I think it's worth. I think you're right on that, going down that train of thought. That they might have been working with the farmers to destroy the windmill because it allowed them total control over the animals.
And when the humans are saying in here at the end, I mean, there's more, but
yeah. Oh yeah. No, I cut that really short. Yeah, on the summary. Yeah, there was a lot in there. Yeah.
And where is it? Where the humans going, you have your lower animals and we have our lower classes. What? And they,
no, there were a lot. Yeah.
Shows the disdain, that the people who prop up all the systems, just don't get appreciated for, the work that they put in and the propping up, that we do.
Absolutely. No, 100% agree on that. Yeah, and that's a great parallel. And the pigs are living this life of luxury, as the men are, and no consideration, no respect for the ones actually doing all the work. Right. So I would agree with that 100% on that. Yeah, general disdain and mockery.
Which was the reason why they rebelled in the first place.
It was.
But they've been propagandized now so much, into believing that it's for their benefit. And
right. Everything's better now. What are you talking about? Yeah. Yeah, they were betrayed by their own and didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see parallels on the American side. Certainly, the idea of, under the guise of freedom and thinking they were a free society, the animals worked harder than ever.
Well, look at America. We have I'm not sure about Australia, but America compared to what's the words I want to say, to Europe, we work longer hours. We work older. I mean, they retire earlier. I mean, we're free. We got to work harder.
Yeah, right. Now that we're free, we have to work even harder. And then it leads the question, are we really free? Right. And I at one point worked with a guy from Switzerland, and he would pretty much openly about it say, you guys aren't free. You think you're free, but in Switzerland, we have way more freedoms than you ever have. Right. So we don't know what freedom is other than what we have. And Janet was saying there's a reason they picked a gluttonous animal to represent the leaders.
Mm. And then we've also got the changing of the rules again. All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others.
Yeah, yeah. Which might be the only second humorous part in the book.
Yeah.
I think that was just a straight up, yeah, yeah. Some are more equal than others. Yeah.
Mm. And how
Which-
when they
I got to share because
That's
Janet's
funny.
in the other room. That's actually a running joke we've had, which was we might, we raised some pigs that we actually processed for food, but she had a deal that if she went down in the pig pen, they could eat her. So we're going to eat them, but hey, you guys could eat me too, and they might have if you went down especially when the two that were 600 pounds each. Those are huge animals, and she actually fell down once, got her leg caught in the mud, and one of the pigs came over and pulled her out of the mud. She didn't know what was about to happen, but actually like grabbed her and pulled her out of the mud, so that the pig actually sort of saved her.
Mm.
But yeah, it's like you don't know a large animal that might eat you. It might
Pigs are
actually.
very, very dangerous.
They're big
Mm.
animals.
They
Yeah,
are very
Mm.
dangerous.
yeah.
Mm.
They can eat
They
you. They can
will
chew
eat
through bone.
people and attack people.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm.
Ours are super sweet, but they can
That's
do a lot of
but
damage.
most pigs are not that
Yeah,
way. They're exceptionally dangerous.
we give them a lot of treats.
Yeah, we used to
We
have
spoil
a
'em.
hobby pig farmer where I was growing up, and that used to be all the neighborhood kids. That was like the dare spot, oh, go and see the pigs, and then we'd dare to go up close to the pen, and who would be the closest to get up.
Yeah, yeah.
It's actually really
They're pretty
interesting
sweet. Yeah, yeah.
watching the reason behind a lot of religions banning of pork, and
Mhm.
how, because apparently they used to be our waste disposal. People would just take all of their scraps, and they even could eat our poo
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. Right.
And so then as the cities grew and we had larger compounds and stuff like that, people started being a bit, ooh, yuck, we don't want to
There's
eat
a
them.
lot of diseases in uncooked pork.
Yeah.
It was not
Yeah.
cooked. Many people did not get that, and so there was a lot of problems with pork and pork-related products. Now, of course, we don't see that, or at least we don't hear that anyway.
Right. People know how to cook it properly. But no, and also I think you're right on that, Jay, because I have read about that. There's places in the world where they still do that. They sort of let the pigs loose in the landfills to consume all the waste. They're sort of like a cleanup crew. But we don't do that. Right. I want to say clear. We don't do that, but our pigs are great for recycling. Like if you have any leftovers on your plate, or if we have leftovers in the fridge, whether it's maybe lettuce that's starting to go bad, the pigs will eat it. So they are great for we throw very little away. We started doing composting, but a lot of that can just go to feed the pigs.
Chickens are the same
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Chickens,
don't get credit for that, but chickens are the
Yeah.
same way.
our chickens are a little picky.
Pigs do it more.
Yeah, our chickens are a little picky. Those pigs are not picky.
Mm.
My wife says the pigs are the worst for it.
Yeah, yeah. They're not nearly as picky as the chickens.
In fact, she once tells a story of her falling in a pig pen, and one of the dogs went in and fought pigs to get her out. She was a young girl.
Wow.
And fought the pig to get her out, and of course, she wasn't hurt.
A runt pig. We're going to fatten it up and stuff. And so he brought it home. My mum cleaned it all up, wrapped it all up, and it was such a runt that she was still having to bottle feed it. And so she had this pig wrapped up like a baby. And these people came from the church that they'd just joined, and this lady came over to visit, and we'd only just met them, and she thought we had a baby, and she comes over, thinking she's going to see a little baby, and it's a pig.
Well, I knew it was gonna.
Oh, it was funny. It was so funny.
Drop it.
Yeah. Oh, that was funny. Yeah. So yeah, we've had a few pigs too. Yeah, they're very, very sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, ours have
Yeah.
all been super
Mhm.
sweet. They really have.
Yeah, I've seen.
Well,
I've
you've been
seen.
very careful with them to get them that way. But most pigs are just left alone. I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
my father had pigs. They were terrible
Yeah.
animals. God, the shit was like people's shit.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, that has to do some of that with the amount of space you give them. Our guys have a lot of space, so it's not as big a deal. But if they're in a small space, I think it would be worse. I mean, they're not nearly as bad. Like we did ducks for 1 year, and they were so gross. The ducks were so stinky. The pigs aren't nearly as bad as the ducks were.
Really?
Yeah,
I've heard
yeah, the
ducks are
ducks were
really
pretty
messy
gross.
hard.
Ooh, so
Mm,
bad.
mm,
So bad. If you
mm.
watch, there's a channel we check out occasionally, Self-Sufficient Me, and I think he's in Australia actually, and he did a video, 10 reasons why I will never raise ducks again. And I was
Mm.
watching it like, yep, this is spot on. I agree with every 10
Yeah.
of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Let's get into it.
Yeah, yeah, I love that guy. Yeah, he's got a great
Yeah.
channel. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. He's in
All right.
Queensland though. Really easy to grow stuff up there. I'm
Oh, is
in
it?
down in Melbourne, which is like the southern. So yeah, we get lots of. I mean, we still grow lots of stuff here, but he's in the
Yeah.
tropics, so just you got
Okay.
to sneeze at a plant and it'll grow.
Oh, God.
So, yeah,
He does some cool
yeah.
plants. He does some cool stuff.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully, your channel will be big like that one day.
Someday we keep going. You never
Yeah.
know, right?
Mm,
Someday.
mm,
Um, I think we're getting close to the end, guys. That was chapter
mm,
10. That was the end of the book, and we're coming up on an hour here. We'd
mm,
already talked about Brave New World as the next book, which is Aldous Huxley, if I can speak, Aldous
mm.
Huxley. I was thinking the 7th, like next weekend is Christmas, then we go into New Year's. So the 7th, same time. I'll set up probably a week before. I'll start sending out emails, bugging you, and just set up another SteamYard invite for everybody.
Yeah, great.
Sounds
I've got a
okay
couple
to
of
me.
friends. I've got a
Yeah.
couple of friends I'm inviting, so they could join in today because they hadn't read the book yet and stuff like that. But
We'll start out
yeah,
in
they
the
said
new
that.
book.
Awesome. They'd welcome. Yeah, welcome to join. You can send it to them or if they want to send me an email. But I mean, I send
Yep.
you all the stuff. So no, they are absolutely welcome to join the live.
Yeah, mad.
Yeah, that sounds great. I appreciate that. I think
Who's
that'll be
Aussie
Janet
fun.
Lee?
invasion.
That's okay. Hey, that works. Yeah, and as long as the time works for you, we'll stick with the time.
Yeah, cool.
Who's Janet Lee on the bottom?
It's Janet. That's her middle name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Lee.
yeah. All right. I think on that, we can wrap it up then. I'm excited. Everyone have a great Christmas. I know that's coming up, a great New Year's. And then we'll, read the book, certainly get your reading in. I think we can probably, I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll talk as we get closer, try to do the same thing, maybe half and half. We'll just see going through the book. I don't think it's as paralleled. Maybe I don't want to ruin anything, but no, I mean, we'll go through it. We'll absolutely. I think we'll enjoy the book. I encourage everyone to read it, get you reading it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, great.
What
I'm
was
going to
that?
download it now.
I heard a car
Me?
or something.
Oh yeah, we've got lots of hoons. Yeah,
Hoons.
yeah, lots of hoons. Yeah.
Well, I heard some stuff on. I haven't read or seen anything on Brave New World, but I
Yeah.
heard people talk about the difference between Animal Farm, and they said, "Well, we're really act like we're more in a Brave New World," which I hadn't read, so I couldn't see the parallels of it. But there's a lot of people who think that what we're living in now is closer to Brave New World than Animal Farm.
Well, yeah, no spoilers, right? Because we'll start reading the book together. I've read it, but just like when I wrote the summary, I'm going through page by page, chapter through chapter, trying to kind of rewrite a summary. So I'm rereading the book as we're going through it. I would say I see both, right? To me, what alarms me about Animal Farm is given when it was written, which was the 1940s, and it was about the 1917s. And you see the parallels to the world we're in now. I'm not sure that those parallels have existed since. I feel like you see sort of a circle going, right? I think And we'll definitely dig into this more with Brave New World. I think if you had to fill the time gap between, say, 1960 and maybe 2010, 2020, it was probably Brave New World more than Animal Farm.
Yes, I don't
But
know Brave New World. I will
right.
read it, of
Yep.
course.
No, I hope you do. Absolutely. There may be a movie out there too. If there is, I'll watch it just so I can keep you guys honest on that. But absolutely read it or watch the movie. Read it and watch the movie. No, I think you're right though. There are absolute parallels between points in recent history and Brave New World as compared to Animal Farm and current times.
Mm, mm. Actually, just something I want to bring up
Yes,
with
of course,
back onto
please.
Animal Farm.
Yeah.
Just something that's pertinent for us to keep in mind is the sheep, and I understand the sheep represent the sheep, and
Yeah.
how when all the animals were standing on their legs and wearing the clothes, that before anyone could protest, before anyone could maybe speak out, that's when the sheep came in with their memorized propaganda.
Right.
4 legs
Right.
bad, 2 legs better. I mean, 4 legs good, yeah. And so that's
Yeah.
just something that just struck in with me, like how,
Yeah.
when things like with the censorship laws, the misinformation, the disinformation and stuff, it's being hidden to, and so it's just something that we should keep an eye on and an ear out for is like, what is
Absolutely.
the bleating of the sheep to mute us?
Right. No, I think you're 100% right on that. Absolutely. And you see that right before you even know what's going on. The propaganda is already rolling in and telling everyone what they're supposed to think, how they're supposed to react. And it absolutely was. I mean, it was sort of a critical moment just in the character growth, the transformation, showing the pigs. Now they're walking around on 2 legs, they're wearing clothes, they're wearing whips. And I'm pretty sure that was a violation of one of the rules of animalism, right? Was the 2 legs, or at least that was something they had been saying from the beginning, which is 2 legs bad, 4 legs good. The first rule of animalism was whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. Whatever
Right.
goes upon
He
4
kept
legs or has
chanting it
wings is a
constantly.
friend. Yeah, but that was the first and second rule of animalism was 2 legs is an enemy, 4 legs or has wings is a friend. So I mean, by walking around 2 legs, they broke the first 2 rules of animalism. It's like the First and Second Amendment of the Constitution in the U.S. They broke them immediately, and then the sheep are like, "No, it's great. Don't worry. This is great. This is exactly what you need." Yeah. No, you're right. It really is.
But yeah, so just something to keep in mind for us, and it's so hard to discern, like, like coming onto the COVID, stuff, like, I trust the scientific community, but at the same time, government agencies were able to leverage, the stuff to, put in their own stuff, and so the two truths can be, the same. And so, like, how do we navigate through that, and
Right.
yeah. So that's just something, that's my question. Like, how do we navigate through, between trusting the institutions and being skeptical?
You can't.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you, you can't navigate now. We're so busy rewriting history here in America. I don't know how it is in Australia, but they're erasing the Civil War. They're working their best. Now it's brown skin good, white skin bad. I mean, that's the new thing.
Yeah.
So, like, I didn't feel any animosity to people who didn't want to get vaccinated. Like, like, I can completely understand how you came to that conclusion. I can completely sympathize with how, so yeah. So I think that's where we all
I'm
just
with
need
you.
a little bit of empathy, and just understanding, and
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a great point. So anything else before we hit? Any other notes? Anything I didn't, we're gonna wrap it up and move on. And
no, cool. No.
All right.
Chris.
All right. Well, thank you.
Nice seeing you. Have a good Christmas. Merry Christmas. And a happy
Merry
New Year.
Christmas. Yeah.
All right,
Happy New
thanks,
Year.
everybody.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, we'll see you on the 7th.
Yay. Awesome.